I mean, this is something I actually was curious about, and I did want to ask you, maybe we can get into it this way, is you've been making videos and like putting yourself out there on video since a pretty young age, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I started doing YouTube when I was 11, and we had like a family computer and I had iMovie on it. And I just became obsessed with like making like little fake music videos and making my own songs and kind of just trolling online, honestly. And I had like a lot of YouTube channels. It became like a full-on addiction. I had like collab channels where we would post every single day and have like themes and challenges. And yeah, it's like kind of part of the way, which is what led me to here, because I ended up being a film major in college and brought me to where I'm sitting. So
that's
working out.
I mean, what were
the
early videos? Was the thought just kind of, I want to make a funny music video, something to show my friends, that kind of thing?
I was like addicted to editing. I was addicted to like doing as many like special effects. And yeah, I mean, it was totally for fun, but I definitely took it like super seriously. And then by the time I started doing like collab channels and stuff, like it was no joke. I was like, we have 3 strikes. If you don't make your video this week, you're out. Like it started for fun. And then obviously like it completely just took over all of my mental capacity. And then, I did go to school for it. And, now this has taken over in that way. And I get to combine my love for all of that. So it's been super awesome. I got so blessed with everything. So
yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, like to see where you are now. And to be fair, I mean, you're still relatively young right now, so it's,
yeah.
I also think it's going to be very interesting. There's a lot of potential for where you're going to take it in the future. But starting that young, I mean, it's just wild to me because I think about myself when I was that age. And I mean, of course, I had passions and interests and things I was losing my mind and wanting to do all the time, but none of it was that public. It's just interesting. Do you know, like, where, even from a young age, like, what was the thought? How did editing, film, all of that, were you influenced by something? Was it something around you?
It was like a combo of everything. Like, I just have always loved the internet and watching different YouTubers. Like, honestly, if I were to name like a YouTuber off the top of my head, it'd be Tana Mojo, which she's just a crazy doing kind of nothing. And I was also a dancer. And so when I found out I could make and edit these videos and share it with people, I knew I could combine my love for videography, for just like the internet in general, and keeping up with social media, for dancing, and also like the spirit world. I like found a niche where I knew I could make my dances and tell stories about my experiences, like all my ghost stories, through dance. And then it hit me I could do it through video. And then it hit me I could do it through music. And I think kind of that's where it all really projected, because I became obsessed with like ghosts and like studying like just the universe in general, all of that kind of stuff, that whole realm. Yeah, I think it was just the combination of all of that like really just like kept me going. And yeah, then the way it just kind of flipped and projected into now is definitely super interesting and super silly, because I don't know really what initially got me started or like why I loved it so much. I became obsessed, and I'm really lucky that I kind of always knew I wanted to do something in that realm and perform and do all of that. Because most people, they're like, I don't know what I want to go to school for. And, and I didn't really give a crap about college, honestly. I just was, again, like I was just kind of in my own bubble always, like doing my own thing. And I got blessed along the way.
Well, I mean, I think one really positive part of what you're saying is that you found a passion and an interest really early on. And like you were saying, not everyone finds that as quickly. Were you otherwise school-wise? How did you feel about school in general?
So I honestly, I was a good student. I have like really bad anxiety in general. So I always was like the teacher's bestie. I also was on dance team. So that like took over my whole life in school. Like I was a good student. But I never really cared. Like all of like the tests and everything and like picking a college, I just never really understood it or cared or thought it would kind of impact me because I kind of always had just, I guess, a knowing that I was going to do something weird. Yeah, I mean, and I also like if I got below C, I'd get my ass whooped. So I was a good student. I just always knew that I wanted to do something weird and wacky and kind of be my own boss and be as creative in as many ways as I can whenever I want. Because I'm also a Virgo. I like to do a lot of things. I like to be good at a lot of things, but I'm never really an expert. I like to have knowledge of it. And so knowing that I wanted to be my own boss and kind of create this like world around like where I can help myself and my people out and this different kind of universe and building it, it all just ended up helping and working out.
So I feel like we should set a couple like ground floor bricks in this thing that we're building so we can talk about it later on when we get talking about, what you're doing right now, your career, all of that. You mentioned the spirit world. You mentioned ghost stories, getting obsessed with that. Like, what are we really talking about when we're talking about that?
Yeah. Background context would help. Okay. So when I was a kid, let's start from the beginning. I realized I would have a lot of recurring dreams about this ghost that was trapped in my basement. And I was like, number one, the dream felt so real. It was reoccurring. And then it like manifested into reality. And I was like, I'm schizophrenic for sure. Like something is different about me, but I'm not, but anyways, I was seeing shit that wasn't actually there and it was getting like confirmed in different ways. And, I have another memory as a kid where there was a really bad car accident and I saw this person next to the car crying. And I was like, Mom, like, why is nobody helping that person? And my mom was like, nobody's there.
Was this scary? Sorry, not to interrupt, but was this
It was
scary?
terrifying. Yeah. I still can't sleep in the full dark. Never.
Wow.
It's always frightened me. Not that there's anything even to be scared of. It's just like kind of the unknowing of there's so much that we have no idea. We have no idea how we got here, why, who, what, you know what I mean? Sure. And that's always intrigued me and kind of been pushed in my face. And so when I was 11, the same time I started posting on the internet, I actually ended up meeting my aunt for the first time, my dad's sister. Long story short, my family is very religious and she was not around because she wasn't. And when I met her, she literally looked at me and she was like, I know that you see them too. I'm here to help you. I'm going to teach you everything that I know. And wow. I didn't know anything about her. I didn't even know she was my aunt. And so I just trusted her and she started visiting for a week every year until I grew up. And she would teach me about mediumship, the spirit world, the universe, crystals, astrology, witchcraft, religion, like everything, Reiki, everything under that like kind of portal. She was knowledgeable of to an extent and taught me as much as she knew. I'm super lucky I was able to have that experience because as a child, you're told the magic isn't real. And I was told the magic is real. So I knew I could create my own world and own universe from a young age. I'm very grateful for that. And that kind of my fascination with magic and spirit projected and just got more intense, and the crazier, weirder stories. And the more I learned about the dream world, lucid dreaming, astral projection, and all that stuff, the more I just became obsessed. And then I realized I could tell my stories through my music. And also, quick other sidebar is that growing up, I also thought me and my family were the only people that could do this because everybody around me, nobody could relate. Everyone thought I was crazy or everyone thought I was cool or one or the other. Right. And yeah, it was either I'm staying back or can you give me a reading and tell me what my grandma is saying to me? And so it was interesting. And yeah, when it all clicked and I graduated college in 2019 was the pandemic when it started. I started to take it all super seriously, involved with my music. And I started to tell my stories. I realized how many people related or had different experiences they couldn't explain. And that's when I was like, wow, not that I think I have a specific purpose, but like my purpose, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And
that's very, very interesting. Do you have any theories on why? So, I mean, you're seeing ghosts from a young age. You're, whatever we want to call it, sort of tapping into this thing that either other people aren't or can't or deny or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Why you? Do you have any theories?
So I think that, I have a lot actually. I think that, number one, I think it's not seeing is believing, it's believing is seeing. Whether I mean that physically or kind of just having a knowing. There's a lot of ways to connect with the universe or spirit or whatever you want to call it, with every sense that you have. And I also think that, a couple theories could be, number one, I could have made a contract with myself before I came on Earth that I was going to help people learn about this and learn about themselves and tap into literally just a feeling of love and helping people. Or it's that I got lucky and I was told magic is real. And when I'm told that, it doesn't go away. And
I think that's huge, actually, telling a kid that from a young age. Because, kids at that point, you don't know what's real, what isn't. You don't even the concept of magic, right?
I wouldn't have known this person wasn't standing in front of me if no one told me.
Right.
I'm just chilling.
Really interesting.
And and I really think that also, I think that everyone has these capabilities, because I think some people, and whatever they want to call themselves, psychics, mediums, say that they're like gifted. And yes, it is a gift, but everyone is equal. Everyone has these capabilities to tap into that unknown sense and the sixth sense. Yeah, I think I got trained. I think a lot of people have the memories that they've had experiences like that as a kid and they just don't remember, because there's so many stories where these kids are talking about like past lives and their dead relatives that they've never met before. So many stories, right? And so I think a lot of times they're told magic isn't real. They grew up and they forget about it. Again, I just got so blessed that I was able to kind of work with that and spin that in my own way. And I was told that I could do anything that I wanted. And that I have and I hold the love and the power in myself, and I don't have to pray to some outside source, which whatever, if that's what you want to do and that works for you, love it for you, right? But for me, I was just told I can do whatever I want.
It's that's fascinating. It's also cool that it seems like, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like your parents must have been fairly supportive people in terms of letting you follow what your interests are, your passions.
Yeah. I got very lucky that I was able to follow that, because I know a lot of parents are like, you need to be this or that. And I was able to be what I wanted. And so I'm very blessed for that, even though, relationship with parents, and it's different now, but I'm still blessed for the experiences I had. And overall, it's just crazy.
So let's talk about you. You said you were a dancer as well. Is that where the connection to dance music comes in? How did that enter your life?
Yeah, kind of. Kind of. So I've done all types of dance. I've been a competitive dancer. I've done dance team, all that kind of stuff. As much dance as I could growing up. That was like my sport and like my other thing. And so, and when I was in high school, I was in charge of making all like the mixes and choreographing, and I was the captain. So we didn't really have a coach. So I basically was coaching these girls and got to pick the music and got to do all of that creative stuff. And so, that's kind of, I accidentally kind of tapped into the electronic music world. I was dancing to Skrillex and I was dancing to Brills, which is so funny because I had no idea. But I still, when I was doing these dances, I was like, this type of music is sick, but it never hit me the community that is electronic music and the whole universe within it. I was just, again, chilling, mind my business, thought these songs were sick, loved music, loved dancing. and was like, cool, right? It never even hit me to look into it further than that. So I was going to concerts growing up and like different, like small little one-off electronic shows. But again, I wasn't in it until after I was DJing in college. When I was a freshman, I was told that I like to dance and I like to perform and blah, blah, and I might as well be a DJ and try it out. And so I started doing it totally for fun. I then started getting involved with like local promotional companies. And that's when I discovered the community of, and that is the electronic music world.
Are we talking about like frat
all
parties,
the festivals,
local bars?
shows? Oh, so I was DJing at all my like job in college. My jobs was every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I would DJ at all of the local bars. Sometimes I do frat parties, but the school I went to was small, and so it wasn't like a fraternity sorority school,
Right.
if that makes sense. That couldn't be me too. So I would rather play the music for all of them than to and be able to go to all these different groups instead of like
It's exactly
connecting
what I
to
did
one.
in college too. Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And so I was DJing at like probably 6 different bars, all of the local ones that were around. And the silly thing is that I was definitely underage. And so I was like the underage girly that was kind of just out there playing the music. And I started as open format DJ, playing lots of hip hop, top 40, like yada, yada.
How'd you learn how to DJ, out of curiosity?
Myself. Yeah. YouTube tutorials. Having the understanding for music theory, I also played the clarinet in school growing up. So knowing music theory and knowing like the way music works and being a dancer really helped me pick it up fast with like timing and
Sure.
mixing. And then I was also a film major in college. And so when I discovered my love for DJing, I was like, well, this is the perfect opportunity to switch over my major, take as many music theory classes and music production classes as I can until I graduate. So that's what I did. And yeah, then I took all those classes. I was DJing every week. I wasn't playing like real shows, if that makes sense.
Of course.
And I wasn't, I still I started going to festivals. My first camping festival was Bonnaroo in 2018, I think 2017. And yeah, I ever since I started, it's completely had me hooked. And again, totally for fun. I think the fact that I didn't have like an intention is kind of what helped me, because it's like releasing expectations and desires and kind of authentically just digging it and enjoying music.
Yeah.
Is definitely what led me here. And then the pandemic hit. I was done school. I started to do TikToks and get on there. And luckily, because I was on the internet from a young age and I knew how like algorithms and social media worked, that was easy for me to pick up too, and started talking about my experiences with spirit and the universe. And then I started talking about music, and that's when it hit me. I could do both at once. And so now I'm here.
Amazing. I mean, yeah, it's so interesting. There's a couple things in what you just said that I want to dig into a little. One is that, getting on TikTok, having a better understanding of the way that whole world operates, because you've been doing it for a long time. Doing this podcast, a common frustration a lot of artists talk about is like the current era of social media, trying to keep up with the algorithms, TikTok, Instagram, like always having to change up what you're doing, always feeling like they're against you and you're behind. Yep. Do you feel like, with your experience and having done it from a young age, what does this current era feel like to you? Like, do you feel that as well? Or
that's so funny. Yeah. I love that conversation, actually. I think that social media is a blessing and a curse. None of us would be where we are without it. And at the same time, it's also killing us. And I am so grateful that I knew how to work it, and it was fun for me, because I think what the problem is that feeling like you have to use social media in these certain ways is what is taking the fun out of it for people. It is so hard, and it's a lot to keep up with. And I will tell you that when I first started doing TikTok like that, I would take a day out of my week. I would film a ton of videos, and I would post it the rest of the week, but I would get it out the way and I got a good schedule. But most importantly, I had fun with it. And I think where that conversation comes in, where I feel like a lot of people are like almost angry that they have to post. And I think number one is just being grateful. Like really our struggles are being stressed over social media. Like, you know, there's people dying. And so that's number one. Anytime someone brings it up, I'm like,
of course,
guys, it's supposed to be fun. And also, number two, it's like, getting a good schedule with yourself. And, it should be fun to promote your music for people. And I really just set up all my most successful videos. And maybe this could help somebody that's listening or watching this, is that all my most successful videos, I did not think about. I recorded myself dancing, being an idiot. And yes, it is embarrassing and cringy. That's part of it. If it's not cringy, don't post it. Don't watch it back. But yeah, so I randomly record myself and post it, and it did well. And so again, releasing the expectation and the desire, doing it and being authentic, because number one, it's important that you're authentic. And number two, the universe can smell it. There's a balance to it. And I really overall think it's a big blessing. It's so easy to find an audience, to find people that relate with you. And it is a lot of work and it is very frustrating. But at the end of the day, it's something that should be fun, and it's totally easy to keep it fun.
It's crazy. I've never heard someone talk about social media in this one specific way. And you just connected something in my brain for me, because again, on this podcast all the time, when I'm talking about production and songwriting with people, it's a universal rule that all of the best songs throughout history, throughout all time, it's, all the classic iconic songs we love, they're all written quickly, like in the moment. Yep. People weren't thinking that much about them. But I've never heard someone say that about making content for social media. That's very interesting. Yeah.
And I've been doing it for years and it's worked for me. And I love helping people and talking about it too, because I know, like, specifically my project is a big topic of conversation with social media because I've found so much success through it. But it's, it was very much planned, and like I had my schedule, but at the same time, all my videos that did do very well were the ones that I did not plan. And I realized that, and that's what I keep in mind now. And that's how I move and that's how I roll. And there's so much topic of like algorithm and always switches, and you can't say link in bio and you have to do this. I've never cared. I've never, made note of that. I literally just post what I want and what I like. And again, I'm like real about it. And I really think that's what has gotten me to where I'm sitting now. And anybody, if I can do it, trust me, anybody can do it. And I just think overall, like within like the kind of the producer and like music conversation of social media, it's that, why are we complaining about making videos of us enjoying our music, other than they think it's cringy and it's a lot of work. And, if it's not cringy, then don't post it. And my number one rule is, once you post it, don't ever watch it again.
Oh, that's pretty good too. And it's so funny because, again, there's all these corollaries to songwriting, right? Where it's a lot of people, I think up and coming artists, want to get started by trying to copy their favorite artist, right? Or like do what their favorite artist is doing, which I say this all the time, very legitimate way to learn how to make music, but it's not always going to work great if you're trying to really make a career off of it, which is the same, you're making me realize, is trying to keep up with the algorithm as opposed to just doing what you think is cool.
I mean, you really just have to be you. Obviously, like especially when you talk about music production, when you're learning how to produce music, all of your professors are going to tell you, use a reference track, go and literally drag in and copy one of your favorite fucking songs, right? But then, there's a balance. It's like, what makes you you? You don't have to follow all the rules. That's why I love making music and making electronic music, is that I don't have to do tit for tat. I am doing my own thing completely, and it's working. And there's a balance between so much time into this song and this album and this music, and really just thinking it through, like, what's the story and how are people going to connect to you through your stories that you can tell, and then just saying, fuck it. total balance there. Both work.
Well, I mean,
which one is going to cause you less stress?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I think this is actually a good way to talk about your album, The Code of Dreams, which is a very cohesive body of work, I think. And it makes me want to ask you, in terms of doing what you want, doing what's natural to you, how have you arrived? Was it a conscious thing? Was it an organic thing at what is, I think at this point, your sound? Like, you listen to the album and it's a cohesive body of work. It has a very focused point of view. But, just like production wise, songwriting wise, I think finding a sound can be a tough thing for anyone.
Yeah. It's so funny when people tell me that, because obviously I've had that question and conversation since I started music, and I've never made it like a thing to find my sound. It kind of just develops the more you write music and the more I put kind of my stories in myself without, again, the expectations or copying or doing something else that I think is cool. Like, there's so much music out there that I love that sounds so totally different than what I put out. And I could make that if I want to, but I don't know. When I make music, I get into a complete flow state, and what comes out of me comes out of me. I definitely, the more you make music too, in general, though, I will say, like, I have like my system that in my like flow of writing music of how I start. And then like, even when I make all my bases, like I know it works for me. I know how to make my little wubs that I use very quickly. And so I like obviously go back to that. And so that's probably where people more think I have like a sound with like the type of bases and everything that I use, which totally makes sense because it all derives from kind of the same thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was never kind of on purpose with developing my sound. Again, I'm just kind of doing my own thing and seeing what comes out of me. But what I did have was an idea for the album. And I knew what helps me is having a story and having a title and something to go off of is kind of where my music develops. I knew I wanted my album to, when you read all the tracks in order, it tells its own story. And then I knew where I wanted to pinpoint. I knew what type of songs and like BPM I was going to use and keys. And I knew all of that going into it. And so that all was very planned, which can be fun and can also be a nightmare trying to finish it. But yeah, so all of that was definitely very thought out. But besides that, like what comes out of me after that, completely on a whim. And it definitely makes me happy when you say that it does sound cohesive, and you can tell that I have a sound because love that, but I don't know how I got there.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's interesting too. Do you feel like you're still headed somewhere with a sound? Like, do you feel like you've kind of found your lane, or do you feel like this could go anywhere?
No, it could always go anywhere. Any song I write can go in 5 million bajillion places. That's another thing I love, is that there are literal infinite possibilities when it comes to making music. And I still, every single day, feel like I'm just getting started. I always learn something new. I'm always learning new stuff about music production, and there's just infinite shit to know. And it just keeps going and going. And so, yeah, I still feel like I know even by the end of this year, I'll probably hate the music that I'm making now. It's just, it is what it is. But yeah, I'm definitely still just getting started. I have no idea still what's yet to come out of me, but I'm excited.
Was it, you said in college when you first started learning to produce?
Yeah, like officially, I would say like getting like actually like taking classes. When I was growing up, I have like really embarrassing private YouTube videos of like songs that I made where we'd use like GarageBand. And then in college, yeah, we used a bunch of different dolls, and that's when I like actually was starting to like understand everything better and like the world, and like taking it seriously and like learning about just music theory and just different production tips in general that I would never have taught or learned myself. Yeah, after that, I just kind of combined all of it when I was done with classes and everything, and just started following just different YouTube tutorials and myself and what sounds good and trusting my ears. Now I'm here.
How did it happen, I guess is my next question, because it sounds like from a young age, you've just dived into anything that interested you. Like, it doesn't sound like it's been a problem for you to really like put the work in to learn whatever you wanted to learn, to get into whatever you wanted to get into. How did the bigger dance world start finding out about you?
Number one, I have always had such a good support system with it. My friends and my family and everyone around me has always just been so supportive. Obviously, I've had a lot of people tell me I'm never going to make it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm having fun and that's what matters. And I think that mindset and having the support when I would do like local shows, it's like, at first it's about, as annoying as it is, it's about ticket sales. And if it wasn't for my friends, I wouldn't have been able to even have the first opportunities.
Sure. So you would always pull up with a big crew.
Yeah, like my people were with me, and I'm just so lucky that I've just feel so loved. And yeah, just having them. And then, what really did it was TikTok. And it's funny because when I first started doing TikTok again, I had no expectations, totally for shits and giggles. And I literally had people tell me that it's like fake views. It's not real people. It's not gonna they're not gonna actually stream your stuff and buy tickets, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, number one, I don't care. And number two, I think that you're wrong. I think that you're wrong. I think this is gonna be like the next YouTube. I can feel it. And I got asked to go on tour with Subdocta. And when I went on that tour, sorry, my cat's right here.
Oh, he's
that's
so
when
cute.
I realized, that's when I realized I was in for it, because every single person that came to support me on that tour said they came from TikTok. And then it really hit me. I was in for it when I played Forbidden Kingdom. I think that was 2022, maybe. 2022, I think. I played that, and I played it like 1 p.m. and I got doors, and usually nobody comes. I was playing on like the smallest stage. And when I first started playing, nobody was there, and I was like, oh shit, like this sucks. And then I realized they didn't open doors yet, and they opened doors like 10 minutes into my set. And all of a sudden I saw like a rush of people, and I was like, oh no, like this is real. Number one, I was also so happy. I was like, oh my gosh, like the support, I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen people ride for someone like that at 1 p.m. in Florida at like the dimpy little stage, and it was packed out within 10 minutes of everyone running there. And so that's when I was like, oh my gosh, TikTok is for real. Like these are real people. And it's crazy because the relationships I've developed from there, the friendships I've had from the internet that translated into real life because of TikTok is actually insane. And so most of it all came from TikTok at first, which is so silly.
Sure, but it's all silly, right? To me, I don't really place a value judgment one way or the other on that kind of thing, because it's all silly. It's all, everyone's story of how they made it is some combination of a lot of hard work and passion, and then something silly. Like it's always you have to have both, Yeah.
I just feel a little badly because I know that my story was everyone else in the industry was like, oh shit, like I have to use TikTok now. And I feel like a lot of people feel like, from me, and I was definitely one of the first people to be posting about DJ videos. I'd post to be mixing. I post my songs in the electronic world. And now I feel like people take it as they have to. And I definitely feel a little bad because number one, you don't have to. And I don't want people to stress about it, but it has helped a lot of other people gain a lot of success. And I used to make little Google Docs with everything I've learned and try to send it to my fellow people that want to do the same thing. But I do still definitely, I say it with kind of caution, because I'm I definitely feel bad because it definitely is the thing now. Everyone uses it. Everyone feels like they have to. Everyone's teams are like, why aren't you on TikTok? And I'm like, sorry, guys. Totally.
I mean, do you feel like you had any judgment when you first got on the scene from that?
Oh, still every single day. every single day. People don't take me seriously there. And I see like the comments and the tweets and everything of other artists where they say something along the lines of like, you know, maybe I should just go make a TikTok and blow up about it instead of actually writing music. And it's like, believe it or not, I do both. And it takes up all of my time, 100% of my time, which I don't have a problem with. But yeah, that's what it takes. You got to do both. Believe it or not, I do it. So it is silly to me, but and it doesn't actually like get me down or affect me that way, but I do see it all the time, every single day still, for sure.
It's very interesting. I don't think I realized, it sounds like you were just a little early to DJs on TikTok in general. Oh,
yeah. Since TikTok was called Musical.ly, I was on there because, you know, I was a social media kid.
Right.
So just so embarrassing. But I've always been on there. Even like when there was just children on there in 2018, like I was on there just trolling. And so, yeah, luckily I knew how to work the app. And yep, I was definitely like when you would type in EDM TikTok, like my videos were the ones that would pop up at first. I was definitely in our bubble, in our scene, the first person to be doing that. Totally ironically, not on purpose.
Right.
I was just winging it. I did not think anything. I did not think it would develop into the community on TikTok the way it is today. It's actually nuts. But a lot of those videos are private now because it's very embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, this was my next question, because I think a lot of what you're saying is sort of common sense stuff of like, you know, whatever you're doing, it needs to be authentic to you. It needs to be something that you really stand behind, even if it's like a silly thing. You know, yeah. We all sort of understand like the basic level of that. But I always wonder, for a self-professed social media kid, like, have you learned anything about the nature of that public-private line? Because you've put so much of your life on film in public for so long. And I think even for other artists who think about getting into putting more of themselves out there, there's always that worry of like, I don't want to, I want to keep some of this for me. What is okay to share? What am I going to feel weird about people knowing?
Oh my gosh. I am a chronic oversharer. When I was on social media up until like a couple years ago, still, you can ask me anything. I'm an open book. I'm down to talk about literally anything. And that's my thing. Like, I think that people see me and can connect in that way because they know that, number one, I'm a real human. And number two, like, I've been through it and I'm down to talk about anything. And I'm here to help people ultimately. And my music helps people. Where I think that people are like kind of nervous is that, you know, they want to keep stuff private, and totally understand because there are creepy motherfuckers out there. And also sometimes you do want to, you know, I just want to write music and I don't want to have to show myself, which is totally fine. But at the end of the day, you have to question yourself. Like, do you want to just make music, which is totally fine? Or do you want to make music and perform and have an audience and supporters and yada, 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 right? And the yada, yada, yada is where it gets scary and intense. And it's kind of like a life dedication thing. Like I'm already like, no, I'm set for as long as I'm here and I'm on earth and I have legs, right? Like this is my thing. I've found my passion. And so a lot of the times people, when they don't want to show themselves on social media and don't want to, you know, let people in that way, that's totally fine. It's just a question you have to ask yourself. Are you ready to take it one step further? Because at the end of the day, connecting with your fan base is something that not only brings me like ultimate joy and like peace in my heart, but it's, you know, it helps them and it helps me. And so that's like kind of the thing of, do you want to commit to that? And do you want to kind of be looked at in that way? And I think a big negative is, like my safety definitely sometimes is interesting, especially being a woman in the scene and all the creeps out there, but also like just in general, you know, how much can I say? How much can I talk about? Because usually when you talk about certain personal things online, you're the one that gets demonized. Like, you know, going through a breakup or going through this or that, or this song isn't good enough. Like people pick you apart. And so again, it's It's just knowing how to deal with that and the haters, and learning how to kind of shut that off and know your worth, and how much of myself do I want to give. And totally normal for humans to not want to give that. You know, like humans are selfish. I'm selfish too. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm if I was doing this for myself, I wouldn't be doing this. You know, I love making music, and I so blessed in so many areas. Every single area of my life, I'm blessed, really, truly. It can make me cry. But it's also a curse, you know? I'm also constantly being watched and judged. And yeah, it's a life for sure.
Well, I mean, are you able to, I guess I'm just saying, I hope in all of this, because I think you have a good head on your shoulders and a pretty solid understanding of like what this whole thing is and what it means and how you operate in it. Are you able to keep something for yourself? Like, I feel like just as a human, that's like an important, healthy thing to be able to do is like,
yeah,
you know,
like,
have something that's just for you.
Sometimes it's definitely a struggle. Like, I also vlog, and I vlog like everything. And I love sharing people. Like, I love oversharing. Like, you guys want to know something? I'm here. Like, have cameras on me 24/7.
Of course. And by the way, I'm not criticizing at all here.
No,
I'm just very
no.
curious.
Yeah, totally get it. But at the end of the day, it does get hard keeping stuff to myself and like finding like Gabrielle time versus Zingara time. And I did have to kind of separate it. But yeah, like just kind of the way that I even start my day, I don't get into like Zingara mode until I've had my me time. And, you know, like most importantly, sat outside, I'm like meditating, I'm doing my shits, like I'm being healthy. Because again, even in general, you get into the music industry, it's just toxic, like for your mind, body, and soul, you know? So how can I stay healthy at the same time? And it's very difficult, but it's something at the peak of my mind every single day. And I'm always trying to do better and be able to have like, you know, that personal being, especially with another thing to bring up is kind of like your friends and like keeping your friend group small. And I have so much love for so many people, but ultimately like my core circle is very small, and it's very important for the personal me time and personal things that you go through, and knowing what to share and what not to, and kind of having that like strength to be like, okay, this is for Gabrielle and not, you know, not for the rest of the world. Yeah. So yeah, that's a great question.
I'm always I love conversations like this because for me, I didn't come naturally to social media, and it's, you know, it was very much something I had to learn over a long period of time. And I'm more of the introverted person. And so I'm always interested talking to someone who's able to really put it all out there. Just because it's, you know, it's like another walk of life.
I actually have really bad anxiety, and I am definitely like, if I were to describe myself, I'd definitely be an introvert. Like, I am like I'm good at kind of masking in not a toxic way. Like, I can like, you know, turn myself on to like anybody. I can have a conversation with anybody, but at the same time, I'm in my head like, you know, am I saying the right thing? Am I here? When I'm at my house, I don't leave. Like, I definitely have really bad anxiety. I was the kid that was always around my mom's ankle. And so I think that another reason why I love this career is that it forces me to step out of my comfort zone. I've been learning so much about like myself on a soul level of like what I can and can't handle as a human. And I'm so blessed for that because, I would totally describe myself the same way.
Yeah, like, that's funny. That's very funny.
It's like a switch that you turn on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I feel the same way. This career has absolutely broadened my horizons and made me grow as a person in a lot of ways. I will say, too, I don't know if you relate to this. For me, DJing in particular, I've always loved DJing. It's my out of all the parts of this career, like, being in a club DJing, it's my favorite thing to do in the world. And I think part of that for me is there's a control element to it where it is craziness and I'm surrounded by a million people, but I have most of the
I'm the
control
captain.
of it. And do you think it's the same thing with like the vlogging and the social media stuff, where it's like you can know all this stuff, but I'm the one showing it to you. I'm getting ahead of it. I'm in control of how you see it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's also like a Virgo aspect of myself too, like kind of being or at least being the co-pilot, because the pilot's the universe. I'm just fucking here for the ride, you know what I mean? But or whatever however you want to put it. But yeah, the control thing, I totally relate. Being the DJ, like I said, like instead of like joining a sorority or any group like that, I was just the DJ there, like playing the music, and I got to kind of stay in my bubble, which is so funny because that's like you're the one with the freaking light on you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I still felt like I was in my little shell in my bubble, and I felt like safe there. And being able to like put smiles on their faces when I feel like I've always kind of, and that goes back to like my childhood too, with like wanting approval from people, and like wanting people to like think that, you know, like you're accepted. And that's like a human thing that, again, most humans want. And it's a thing that you kind of learn as a child when, like through your parents, you just want to be loved and accepted, and you just want to like, you know. So I think that kind of like from my childhood and my experiences with my family kind of projected into my career, and like kind of just wanting the approval of like, you know, like I'm playing the music. Do you guys like it? Like, are we cool here? Like, you know, and kind of standing there too, like worried, because even now, I put just myself on the line with like throwing like headlining shows, ticket sales. Like, how many tickets did you sell? Yeah. Oh, you didn't sell out? Nah, you know what I mean? Like my being is kind of like on a profile that anybody can click and see and judge. And it definitely helps feeling like, you know, I have control over it. And like, you know, I'm posting what I want you guys to see. But at the end of the day, like, that is kind of everything. And I like learning from the standpoint of releasing the control. Like I can put stuff out, and I can put out music, and I can put out videos and play shows, but it's up to you to like have the reaction, and do you like it? And I'm just doing me, and hopefully that they like it, and you know, stuff like that. But having the control is funny that you say that.
Yeah. For at least for myself, I've come to realize that's definitely a big part of it. I mean, it's interesting you're talking about like as the shows are getting bigger, you're headlining tours. There's more pressure, there's more eyes, probably more expectations externally, if not also internally. Like it made me think about earlier, you were saying how just following what makes you happy, what you think is cool has gotten you to this point. How have you been able to sort of keep doing that as this success has really been happening? And like now there's all these external business considerations, and it's kind of morphing into like a whole different thing that I think oftentimes can really wring the fun out of it for people.
Yeah. I think that a couple of things. Number one, I got blessed with the most incredible team ever, that we truly are a team. We work with each other, and we talk every week. We just like, I am so lucky to have a team that listens to me, that sees my vision, that wants to work with me and for me, and you know, sees the message, and they're just good people with good intentions. And that's step one, because there's just a lot of people in the scene where they want a team and then they settle, or they're just not with the right people, and contracts and labels and yada, yada, hoopla, you know what I mean? And so luckily I'm in a position where I do get to decide what is too much for me and what I want to do and what kind of shows. And, you know, they're totally open to anything. And so that's a big thing, because a lot of people, they'll sign with a label and then they have to do this, and they can't put a song out until here, and then they have to play this show. And why don't you look like that? Why aren't you wearing makeup? Right? Like, I hear this shit all the time, and I'm so lucky that, you know, if my team said that shit to me, what? Get out of here. You know, like it's like a family, you know. So that's the first thing. And the second is when I am building out these shows, like what do I want it to look like? I like sit there and I imagine, like, I close my eyes and I'm like, okay, if there's a type of people there, who's going to be there? What's the show going to be like? What's the music playing? What are we wearing? Who's there? And I'm big with manifesting and envisioning all that stuff. And so I really just sit there and I envision what I want it to be. And I bring it to life as much as possible. And just being able to have that control and that like essence kind of there helps with like the, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of just like self judgment and just being judged by other people and stuff like that. But being blessed with the right people, getting to do what I want, not holding or having any shackles, and working independently. I think TikTok also really helped with that because I already had an audience versus like a lot of people work with labels and stuff like that because they want to build that. And not that I feel like I'm anywhere near done building and, not hit to any labels. But at the same time, like, I'm so lucky I have my own fan base that I can do these things and creative things myself and not have to kind of be overworked or pushed back or any of that kind of stuff. Because I'm definitely very self-aware in that when I have a lot of shows or something, like how can I balance that? Like I took off like 3 months from playing any shows. And at the beginning of this year, and I usually take off around 3 months and I just make music and then I go into tour. And then so I have my rotations that I found work for me, but it's number one is being self-aware of it and knowing you can take breaks and knowing your limit and stuff like that.
You actually, while saying all of that, I was thinking, part of my brain was thinking about Sammy, about LS Dream, because I've known him forever. And I remember when he made the switch from Brills to LS Dream, there were a lot of echoes of what you were just talking about, because at the time, I don't know if people know this or remember this, but Brills was very successful. It wasn't like Brills was kind of on the downswing and he needed to do something new. Everyone sort of was like, why are you doing this? This seems like a bad idea. Why would you throw away this thing that's working really well to start this project that is, nothing at the moment because you just thought of it?
Yeah.
And it was very much kind of the same thing where he was, I remember talking to him. He was just sort of like, yeah, this doesn't seem as fulfilling anymore. I feel like there's other approaches I want to take musically, spiritually, philosophically, whatever it is. It's a lot of what you were just talking about. Yeah. I wonder if, did you guys sort of connect in terms of like your attitude towards the business as well as, just sharing teams?
Every way.
And
that's like my soul. I feel like, I don't know what it is with him and his like being, but I just like, that's like not my dad, but like that's my dad. Like that is my friends, my therapist, like we have connected in every single way. I'm so fucking thankful for him. And it's actually funny you say that because I didn't know anything about his background. I didn't even know he was Brills. I just fucked with LS Dream. And again, I try not to really look into that because I don't like to like put people on pedestals like that.
Sure.
That's the toxic thing about social media. But anyways, it's funny you say that because before I started working with Brandon, and again, we have the same manager.
Shout out to Brandon.
Yep. And one of my best friends passed away in 2017. His name is Brandon. And before I had a team, I was literally one night on my hands and knees praying to my friend Brandon that passed. I was like, please bring me some guidance. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. Like, I just need help because I can't do this by myself anymore. And less than a month later, in comes this manager named Brandon, who is interested in my project. I heard his name, knew nothing about that man. I said, sign me up. I trust it. And it ended up being Sammy, LS Dream and Clozy's manager, who are two of my absolute favorite people, not only like musically, but people. And yeah, like complete weird coincidence. And it's just interesting having, like talking with Sammy and knowing we have a similar story in that way. Just knowing that we're kind of both guided by whatever in a similar path. And, yeah, apparently Sammy was the one that even vouched for me to Brandon in the first place. Because I made a mashup on TikTok with his song. He saw it, and without even saying anything or like acknowledging my existence, he went to Brandon and said, was like, you need to sign her. And after that, so meanwhile, I'm on my knees and I don't know who my manager Brandon is. Like, I didn't know he existed. I was like, please, like, send me some help. And like, it's actually kind of crazy, like just the way everything developed.
I think both you and he, I'm realizing both you and he share another thing, which is that I think you're both very sort of spiritually connected people, spiritually aware people who combine that with like a really solid business sense. That's like sort of a sneaky good business sense.
Thanks. Yeah. It's like an accident, like I have all these like experiences and then I'm like, well, let me tell my stories with it. And now I'm like making money because of it. But that's kind of where people go bad because it's like, I never want to take that and be inauthentic with it because I easily can, you know what I mean? But everything I talk about and experience is all real. It's very real. And it's actually kind of crazy because when I talk about it and seeing me following that and knowing where I've ended up and I'm 25 is definitely where I'm like, oh shit, like, I'm really not making this up in my head. Like this really is real, because I have these wacky experiences and I'm like questioning what is real and what's not real. And then it's kind of just shown in my face every time I question it, how I do feel guided and whatever people want to say, whether, you're saying spiritually connected and hoop-de-wah, whatever I'm doing, some weird stuff, it's working.
Well, let me ask you this.
It's a place of trust.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the whole thing too. It's all individual, right? Like your reality is not the same as somebody else's reality is not the same as my reality. And,
Yeah, 100%. That's why I'm always like talking about it, and especially talking about it with strangers. I'm like, I don't know like what you believe in and whatever, but I don't care. And like, you do you, I do me, and it's working.
Of course. No. And again, that's why I love having talks like this too, because I'm a skeptic as by 100%. Nature. And, I grew up very atheist and kind of thinking like there really isn't much going on that, we don't know about. And then as I got older, that's changed over time pretty significantly.
I'm always back and forth. I totally agree. Yeah,
of course.
Like, well, and I don't know,
but it's super fun to talk about and think about because I think we can all agree there's a lot about the way the world works that we don't understand yet, just as a baseline agreement.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you this, and in this framing, so like I'm not asking you as an authority. I'm not asking you to state a fact, but your album is called The Code of Dreams. Philosophically, it's a lot about dreaming, the dream world, all that. What do you make of dreams? What's going on with dreams?
Okay, so I think that when you dream, it's your subconscious mind kind of bringing up pictures and experiences in your head, right? When I was a kid, started having dreams of things that were happening that I should not have known. For example, quick examples is like, there was a tsunami in Japan in 2011 and earthquake. And I had a dream before it happened as a kid. I was like, what the fuck? And I ended up knowing about it before it happened. That happened several times about death of my loved ones, all the shit that I should not have known. And I started writing it down for proof, right? I was like, I need to prove to you guys, I'm not making this shit up. So I did, started having proof. And so I was like, I need to write this down. And then I started learning the difference of, what's lucid dreaming, because there was sometimes I would know I'm in a dream and I could create what I want. But then there was sometimes where I was in a dream where I didn't have to create. I could go places and I could leave and I felt awake. So what's the difference? And again, this all, since I was a kid, has always been pushed in my face. I started even, my loved ones that passed away would visit me in dreams and tell me things again I shouldn't know, or just take me places. And they all knew about my love for that too, which was even cooler. I could tell the difference versus when my brain was like making something up versus when I could tell that I was there to learn something and I was awake and I would feel more tired. So I just started having like fucking nutty dreams all the time. And even if it had nothing to do with the spirit world, like say that I was going through something at work where I couldn't, get my words out. I would have dreams where my teeth are falling out. I'm like, well, what's the symbolism? And that's why it's called the code of dreams, because I realized that a lot of the times your subconscious talks to you through code, and it will be stuff like that. Like there's animals and crystals and things and places you can go in your dreams that are very symbolic, whether it's a nightmare or a dream.
Sure.
And when I started to pay attention, I started to feel more aligned with myself. I could realize when I needed to talk to someone about something, when I was holding something back, and yada, yada, yada. I still don't really know what to do when I have dreams of people passing. So yeah, when I wanted to write an album and Brandon told me I needed an album, guess what? I had a dream about it. It said, call your album The Code of Dreams. And so that's what I did. And yeah, I just kind of wanted a place to, again, musically, I love talking about this shit. So I wanted a place where I could kind of dive in and bring my dream world to life. Literally the ones I had at night and like my manifestations as a kid. So I visually and musically, like someone came to my show, talk about in my song, The Code of Dreams, a jungle and a beach, because those are some of the reoccurring places I would go. And it was so cool that I could like literally through music and through my visuals actually recreate. I described to my visual guy, Samuel, I was like, this is what it looks like. And he made it. So I just thought it was so cool. And I also just love in general the topic of like your child self and your younger self and childhood traumas and kind of releasing that and shadow work and stuff like that. So I kind of just wanted to bring to life everything that I experienced as a child and kind of just give my child self a hug and like tell myself it was going to be okay. And that, kind of validating my experiences and stuff like that. So it was very healing.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what you're talking about really does sound like therapy. Like there's clinical therapy where you do sort of confront your traumas or not recreate, but like revisit things that have happened through various techniques. And it's really interesting to think about you sort of doing that for yourself through the medium of dreams. Yeah, it's very interesting. It sounds very fun to just be able to, recreate a dream you had.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. It could also be scary. There's one thing that I feel like could be helpful for listeners is a couple years ago, I was having this reoccurring dream with this shadow figure, and it was super scary. It was like a nightmare, sleep paralysis type of deal, where I would like be in my room and have dreams with the person like completely haunting me. And it was terrifying. And then one day it hit me. I was like, well, technically that's like my subconscious is creating that shadow figure. Like my brain is bringing my demon out of me. Like this demon lives in me. It's not external. And so that's when I realized, again, what helps everything is love, right? So I met that motherfucker in my dream. And the last time I saw that demon, I looked at it in the eyes and I said, I love you. And I chased it around my dream world and I was trying to give it a hug. And I realized that was my shadow self and I haven't seen it since. And so I kind of just let it go and like just kind of let my own shadows and my own demons, like I released it and then I let it go. And it just helps overall, like kind of looking through like life that way of like depression and feeling that and realizing it and seeing it and looking it in the eyes in order for it to be released and to let it go.
Yeah. So. Yeah. There's so much in that. There's the idea, that you are not your thoughts, that comes to mind. And that, even the nature of consciousness, that yes, it's all coming from us, but, also we're generating things that are almost counterproductive or not helpful to ourselves, that you either have to figure out how to choose what's important and what's not, or like you're saying, to confront it. There's quite a lot in that. I mean, it's I relate in some ways because I've done a very small amount of lucid dreaming, but one thing for me in general, if I have like the classic scary dream where like a monster's chasing you or someone's trying to kill you, something like that. I don't know what it is, but in the last like 10 years, I still have those dreams, but every time I just don't run and I kind of just let it. I'm like, okay, sure, stab me or whatever you're going to do. And
Yeah, that could
and
also be
and
like
then it
your
happens
own.
or it doesn't, but it somehow it hasn't really been intentional, but just over time,
Yeah,
it kind of just stopped being an issue. I was just like, all right,
yeah.
let's
I
get
think
this
that
over with, you know?
the symbolism in your dreams of where you kind of let the demon kind of just stab you is, again, think of it in code, like you're kind of just letting you just be letting yourself kind of be taken advantage of or walked on in that way, and finally maybe you feel like you've taken your power back. But again, it could all be symbolic, it can be literal, it's whatever way you take it. But yeah, that's why I just love the like that's why I just love learning about it, because it's so fascinating and there's so many different types of dreams, and there's still really no actual like explanation. I don't know why. And a lot of the times when I call them visitation dreams with my loved ones that have passed away, I would always set an alarm for about an hour before I wake up. And then I'd go to sleep for that hour, and that's when I would have my crazy dreams. And that's what would help me remember them. But technically, like sometimes within that 30-minute time frame, I shouldn't be dreaming like that, right? I have to go all the way to. So I was like, why am I'm closing my eyes and all of a sudden, boom, I'm somewhere else. And, it's wacky. Anybody can do it, but it's like a skill you develop. You just have to practice it. It's every day, even if you can only remember like saying an apple, you still write it down. It's just like any other skill you develop, honestly, which is the annoying part of it.
Yeah, no, of course. And I did some of that too. And maybe you're right. Maybe that's why I was able to get to that, because there was a period where I was writing down my dreams quite a lot. Which is also fun. It's just fun to look back and be like, what the fuck is going on here?
Exactly. Like, why was the chicken dancing with, 6 pairs of pants on and then we're kissing it? Like, I don't know, but cool.
Yeah, it's fun. And it kind of goes back to that like magic is real idea we started off talking about too, where anyone who feels like a skeptic, it's like, all right, write down your dreams for a week and then tell me there's not something weird happening.
Yeah, I love it. My friends come to me too. They're like, can you decode my dream for me? I'm like, yeah. Give it to me.
Okay, well, I feel like we could talk about this shit forever. Let me ask one last kind of meaty question, and then we can get out of here. But I wanted to tie this all together. The new album, talking about dreams, talking about like your spiritual connections, the spirit world, all of that, and also the more serious things you were talking about, like going through loss and going through trauma. We talked a lot, or you mentioned a lot, of sort of channeling these feelings, expressing them through whether it was YouTube videos, whether it's dance, whether it's writing music. This is something I always love talking about, is the actual process. And I'm curious about yours of actually expressing a feeling, expressing an emotion and experience through music. Like, have you learned anything about when you actually sit down to produce a song in front of your DAW, blank DAW? Maybe you got something on your mind. Maybe you've been through something. What is the process for you of being able to express that through, the nerdy process of like actually making an EDM song?
Yeah. Well, I'm like, if you want the full process, it's step 1. I have like me and my little witchy self. I have all 4 elements represented. I always have to have a candle lit. Like, I set the vibe. Like, it needs to be a vibe in my space. So lucky that I finally have my own studio and room to produce in, because I just set the vibe. And then when I mentioned earlier, I think I went into the album with like an idea for the title and, the tempo. So I'm always like, okay, what do I want to write about here? For example, let's do my song on the album called Look Inside. I not even really having to do with, well, I guess that has to do with nightmares, but I was going through a really hard breakup earlier this year, and I knew I wanted to write a song about what the fuck I've been through, because listening to music about breakups and writing it was super helpful. So I said, let's do it. So I called my friend over, and we literally just set the vibe up. We were listening to some other songs that got us into the mood, and then we wrote out the lyrics. And once we had kind of a general flow, I start with the beat and figure out the tempo. I dive in, and once it's time for like the sound design aspect of it, like the actual like creativity, like the actual creative flow, is when like I try to bring myself to that moment in time. And that's when the kind of like the internal therapy and shit gets like released. And I just start thinking and physically bringing up the feelings that I felt in these situations and making a sound that makes me feel that's being released. And so my song Look Inside for the drop, there's this really kind of angry, deep, extended bass growl in there. And that, like, if I could put my anger into a sound, it would have been that. And so my process, overall is like, I literally bring myself to those moments in time and I create and I open up my, usually I'm in Serum and I'm recreating and I'm just going through sounds and make my own shit until I feel like this sound encapsulates the feeling. And I feel like electronic music is so much easier to speak than using words. And that's why I love it so much. You don't need words and you can feel things without words, which is so sick. And sometimes I get into such a flow state where I feel like I'm literally meditating and something's writing through me. I have a joke that my ghost producers are my ghosts.
Right.
Because I like some of my music, I genuinely have gotten into such a flow. And like, you see that in movies and even with yourself, whatever hobbies you have, you just kind of get lost in it. And like all of my craziest music, I got lost in it and I can't even tell you how I made some of it. Like I just like, I don't know, dude, I smoked a joint and I was in my flow state. That's my answer to some of my friends. But like overall, long story short is I take myself back to that moment in time and I write out what I feel. And it's super, super helpful and healing for me to write it, and then listening back and then knowing that it can hit people the way that it hit me is what gives me kind of even more motivation and oomph. But really, it's also so crazy that I write some of my best music when I'm pissed off and angry and like when I'm just like feeling like something like if I don't punch something, I'm going to freak out, right? Instead, I go and I make music and I like feel that same release. It's actually nuts. And so many producers relate, like so much music comes out of like emotional and hard times and so much beautiful music. And it's just kind of crazy how it's ultimately just a crazy outlet for release in that way.
Of course. Yeah. And I think there's plenty of people, creatives especially, but I think anyone could relate to this too, where sometimes you can't express whatever that pure feeling is just in everyday life, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of the only way you can really feel like you're saying what you want to say.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy how I always get reminded how much music is so healing, and I almost forget. And that's just literally what I do. And I'm like, I can literally just put on any song right now that make me like feel something, whether I want to feel the same way or different or escape. Yeah, I always am reminded I'm so blessed that I know how to express my emotions through music, because again, like you said, there aren't words sometimes, and it really did and has saved me in so many ways that I can articulate.
I feel like that's a pretty good spot to wrap it up on, a pretty good sentiment. Is there anything else before we get out of here? Anything else on your mind? Anything else you want to get out there before we wrap it up?
I don't know. If I'm going to tell the viewers anything at this point, it's, pay attention to your dreams and lead with love in your heart instead of your brain that's lying to you.
I love it. Well, this was super fun. I hope you had a good time. I really enjoyed this.
I did. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.